Hello and welcome to Raising Those Spirits Campfire Stories edition. I'm Steve.
I'm Sam. I waited because you usually say it first.
Yeah,
Oh man. Yeah, this time we have the dramatization of the story of the Elaired that we workshopped in our last episode. So I'm gonna read it. I hope you enjoy it.
and you can read it on our Instagram.
That's right. If you want to read it at your next campfire, it will have the full text of the story that we wrote on our Instagram for you to check out at RTSpiritsPod. I also put it up on the Facebook, also at RTSpiritsPod. So, two places you can find it.
Take it away, Sam.
All right. The Elaired. In August of 1975, three lifelong friends from Eastman, Georgia headed out before sunset for the first day of alligator hunting season. Bill, Bobby, and Earl had made this trip an annual tradition since high school. They loaded Bill's truck up with rifles, ammo, and 2 cases of snacks, then hitched Earl's small boat to the back of the pickup and headed out towards the dense Georgia swamps. Earl's family had been hunting gators in their private backwoods swamp since the family first moved to Georgia 70 years earlier. He knew all the best spots where you could get right up to those old reptiles and get them right between the eyes. Earl had a special surprise for his two friends today, a trip to an untouched part of his land. His father had always forbade him from hunting in the northwest corner of the swamp. His great grandfather had made a deal with the previous owners of the swamp to preserve that area and leave it untouched when he bought it. Each generation to inherit the land held up the deal, but when Earl's dad died the winter before and the swamp became his, he didn't so much care about the deal made a half century before he was born, so the hunt was on. Earl's dad's story went that the natives who used to live in the land had shared it with the Elaired, an ancient tribe that had lived on the land since time immemorial. Not a tribe of men and women, but of giant, scaly beasts, with impenetrable shell backs as tall as a tree. The Elaired tribe had dwindled in the century before Europeans had made their way to the land. When white men's cities had encroached on the Elaird's territory, they scattered, hiding deeper and deeper into the swamplands. By the turn of the 20th century, they were all but gone. The last one spotted in the northwest corner of what was now Earl's land. Where Earl, Bobby, and Bill were heading off for a day of hunting and drinking. They shared a laugh about the story and said they would dedicate the first gator killed to Earl's dad. The sun was getting low in the sky as Bobby moved the small boat into the unexplored swamp. His smile was wide and he laughed with excitement like a child on Christmas morning. Bill cracked his first and last beer of the day as Earl lined up a shot on a gator maybe 30 yards away. Earl was going to take the first shot fired on the land in several lifetimes. Earl's rifle broke the evening silence and then sealed the men's fate with a bang. The round made direct contact with what was supposed to be the hide of an Georgia alligator. The bullet made a cracking noise as if colliding with a boulder, and the would-be gator sank below the murky water. The next few minutes went very quickly. The wake in the water headed towards the three men. Bill dropped his beer, Earl stared at the fast-moving thing below the water, and Bobby was too distracted by tying his bootlaces to notice what was going on. Next thing they knew, the thing in the water was rising up next to the boat. As it emerged, its massive size was revealed, 10 feet tall if it was an inch. Earl fell back in shock, tipping the small boat over, and with that the three men were in gator-infested water. Bill was first to scramble to the shore. Bobby was flailing his arms, and Bill grabbed to pull him to a patch of dry land. They looked for Earl in the water, exactly where Earl should have been. But Earl hadn't made it out more than a few feet past the boat. Bill and Bobby turned back to look for him in the water, where they instead saw the turtle man whose massive form blocked out the setting sun. It looked ancient, its face scarred and weathered by time. Its flesh was scarred by gator bites, its armored shell housed deep scratches. It wore tattered cloth around its body, weaved by its long lost brethren. It wore a circular talisman around its neck. Bill and Bobby could see Earl. He hadn't lasted long in the water with the gators. The Elaired was holding the limp hunter in one arm, batting away a horde of hungry alligators with the other. The creature let out a mighty howl, and the alligator swam off. It flipped the capsized boat back over and placed Earl in it. Beast moved back across the dark water away from the two remaining hunters and towards land on the far side of the swamp. Bobby headed towards the boat as Bill stood at the shoreline in shock. Bobby started to shout to Bill about how they needed to get their guns and go after the monster, but Bill wasn't able to respond. Bill watched Bobby as he fished his rifle out of the water and followed the Elaired to the shore on the other side. A creature that was so big it moved fairly quickly in the water, but couldn't maneuver around the dense vegetation on land. Bobby was maybe 50 feet behind it when he reached the land. The Laird turned to see Bobby. The beast lifted its arms and started to rush towards him, and the hunter advanced. It shouted louder, and Bobby took one more step towards it. As his foot hit the ground, there was a snap. Bobby had stepped on a thin rope, which triggered an old dead tree trunk to fall. Bill saw the trunk come down on Bobby, and then Bobby was gone. The Laird looked down to where he had been, crooked his head, made a soft grunt, and waited a moment. Bobby remained silent. The Laird grunted again, a little louder, and waited. Still silent. It allowed a low, guttural sigh, and then looked up to see the motionless Bill. The Laird picked up the dead tree and recovered Bobby, placed him in the boat next to Earl, and retreated to the water. Bill saw its shell, chipped from the shot Earl had fired no more than 10 minutes earlier, diving down below the water, never to come up again. Bill stood at the shoreline for hours. No gators or other creatures came near. As the sun started to come up, his head cleared a bit. He headed to his truck. He drove home, having no idea how to explain what had happened to his wife. The Laird was never seen again, but locals still warn you not to enter the deep swamps in certain areas, just in case. The end.